Beloved students of the Ascended Masters, and all who are looking forward to the abundant life for themselves, for their loved ones, the Ascended Masters would present to you today a new level of experiencing the light of the God consciousness. Necessarily, this is something that you will have to register in the garments that you are currently wearing. You will have to be able to hold the resonant charge of that light of the God consciousness in your feelings, in your mind, even in your physical form. You will be able to feel the intensification of vitality, of clarity of vision, and of ability to have Mercurian thought. But most of all, you will have the registering of that consciousness, the light of the consciousness within your blessed heart, which will lift you into the memory, such that you will feel, entering into that God consciousness, that it is a homecoming for you. It is for you to be able to wear the intensified garments that are able to endure the fierce fire of the light of this God consciousness. This is the work of your lifetime, to surely and steadily elevate the rate of the four lower bodies so that they are able to contain and to move with the acceleration of that light more and more. This is a priceless commodity. It holds within itself the absolute solution to every particular problem that may confront you in your day-to-day life experience. This light of the God presence holds surely the motive force, the patterns of perfection, the intensification of the light that will enable you to actually make your own life experience a veritable Garden of Eden, regardless of the consequence of what others may choose to do or not. There are a number of factors about this divine light which we would like to lift your awareness into the registration of that understanding of the light. First and foremost, you need to remember when thinking of this that while we use the word light as the best possible approximation, it is only that, a metaphor for something that is more transcendent than what your physical eyesight is able to approximate. For this light of your mighty I Am presence is inextricably one with the intelligence that your presence is. Imagine a light ray that is intelligent. Imagine a light ray that is awareness, consciousness. Imagine a light ray that does not require any passage of time ever, as it moves to unite all of the aspects of the God consciousness. This is a most necessary mastery for all of the disciples upon the path, because it is the means whereby you may wield the powers of the mighty I Am Presence in a karma-free manner to liberate yourself, to produce perfection in your life, to heal the wounds upon the nations of the earth, all the while becoming more and more self-luminous yourself, more and more powerful, climbing the ladder of freedom that leads to your ascension. The alternative to wielding the power of the light, the divine light, really is the alternative of the compromise of mortality, of living by one's wits, living by superior dint of outer force, the survival of the fittest, the whole dreary and sad spectrum of human expression that may provide some short-term solutions to problems, but succeeds all the same time in amalgamating your consciousness karmically, tying it more and more and more into the karma of the earth. The Ascended Masters would have you understand that side by side with this outer world that we experience here, this 21st century goings on here upon this planet, that side by side with this, there are positively close at hand and available to you realms of divine perfection, which are enforced by cosmic law in that perfection, that you may this very moment enter into, tap the resources of those realms for practical purposes, but perhaps more importantly, begin more and more every day to live yourself in those realms, by the laws of those realms, and begin in earnest the process of your own ascension in the light. There are a number of factors about how the universe lives on its own under divine direction that we would like to acquaint you with in connection with the consciousness of the light. The first is to have the understanding, which many philosophers and mystics have striven for numbers of embodiments, just to arrive at the pinnacle of consciousness to where they could begin to capture a glimpse of this realization. The truth of the matter is that from the perspective of the least of the Ascended Masters to the greatest of cosmic beings in the heart of the great central sun, time as we know it here, space as we know it here, do not operate, do not limit consciousness. They are, when necessary, useful stepping stones, but ordinarily they are not a part of the consciousness of ascended and cosmic beings. And certainly they are not a part of the one universal consciousness of the one presence. And this applies regardless of how many millions or billions of light years across the physical universe might happen to be, no matter how much more grand and transcendent may be any of the intermediate realms. Nevertheless, you may benefit greatly by meditating upon the fact that, as Moses said so very long ago, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." So there is this profound, all-pervading, organic, primeval, universal oneness that operates throughout the length, breadth, depth, and profound inner stillness of all of creation. There is this oneness that pervades it all. Granted, there is multiplicity within that oneness, but that multiplicity, that manyness, if you will, operates in a coordinated fashion because it is always known to be a facet, a singular facet of a more general and profound truth, which is the underlying oneness of the universe. This is very important. Although you might not realize it now, the time will come when your heart will open and your consciousness will flow out into this greater oneness of life. And you will be so very joyful to have been welcomed back home into the family of that oneness, where there is no opposing factions, no warring forces, no I and thou, no struggle or strife or competition in any manner, but there is a recognition of this absolute and profound oneness. The Ascended Masters have instructed you that this oneness is unpolluted by all of life, save where you have the exception to the rule in the case of the outer expression of free will on the part of unascended life streams on a world such as ours, who are possessed of the capacity of self-intelligence, self-awareness, and self-will, a will that can set itself up in opposition to the divine will. Let us, for the sake of your ability to operate within that level of the oneness, set aside that exception for a moment. Let's consider what life would look like without the perversion of human rebellion and human free will. In that instance, you would find two things. You would find, as we have sought to instruct you at Acropolis Sophia, you would find great, vast, universal hearts of the presence expressing as great expansiveness and unfolding of the oneness of the presence of God, so vast, so all-encompassing, and yet preserving within that integrity their absolute, fundamental, overriding solidarity and oneness of purpose and being. Let's put it this way. You have those universal aspects of God consciousness. These universal aspects of which matter is part, of which nature is part, of which the great sea of universal light is part, the elementals who are not actually individualized are part, and so forth. There is a great, vast realm of nature and supernatural metaphysical creation where there is all universal aspects of the one presence. None of these actually have what individual life streams have. That being, they do not have an individualized mighty I am presence, nor a unique crystal cord, nor a threefold flame, an embodiment which is able to cognize I am, to reflect upon its own identity and existence, and to choose either to cooperate with the universal will of God or to go in conflict with the universal will. So all of nature instinctively, automatically, if you will, consciously, but in a sense with a cooperative, the instincts of nature are always to obey, always to cooperate, because at their root, every part of nature, every part of this great macrocosm, not having free will, only has the will of the one presence. And so naturally, everything that outpictures reflects the good will that is God, reflects the divine intelligence that is God, reflects the purity of the consciousness of God, the patterns of the divine mind that are to outpicture. So you have then a picture of this vast, vast cosmos, all living, all intelligent, breathing, throbbing with life, throbbing with unfolding of creation, and yet it is all pervaded by the consciousness of the one presence. This is truly, when you actually are lifted into your own attunement to look upon this, it is the only thing you might compare it to is being suspended in space over the edge of the chasm of the Grand Canyon, looking out into the void of depthless space. It is truly an awe-inspiring, breathtaking glimpse of eternity to realize how the universe is truly one, how all of God in creation is truly one. And to realize that through the length and breadth and scope of all of this, because God is good and love, all of this is very good, as it was pronounced at the end of all of the 6 days, the active days of creation. All of this genesis, or this coming to be, is very, very good. And so all of life in this sense becomes part of a garden of Eden, where there is no toil, there is no disintegration, such as old age or disease. There is only that good will of God toward everything that He has fashioned and is continuing to fashion. Throughout all of this, mind you, how is it all coordinated? How is it all directed? How is it all ensouled, if you will? How is it all orchestrated down to the minutest detail? It is all accomplished via the light. What you, in some respects, as it comes close to your four lower bodies, you call the Christ light, or the cosmic Christ light. That is the hem of the garment of this light of the consciousness of the one presence that exists throughout all of creation and is continually renewed by the throbbing of the great central sun and the great tidal waves of life as they breathe out and come back in. All of this producing absolute good in every single part of creation. It is preserved in this manner because it is all in obedience with the law of the one. Now, Trust me, the time will come, following your own ascension in the light, when you will yourself personally, through your own blending with the electronic body of your own mighty I Am presence, this fundamental bedrock truth of reality will be driven home naturally into your consciousness. You will see it. You will know it. You will be it. Because, of course, your very own presence is itself a focus of that one absolute presence that has produced all of this magnificence throughout all of creation. This model was described by our own beloved Saint Germain, both as Plato and as Proclus, in the terms of the one ever-living being that exists in the divine mind as a divine pattern, and then becomes a moving image of itself in time and space, a perpetual coming to be. Did you know that in Greek, the word coming to be is Genesis? So Genesis is not a 6-day event that occurred when the world was created long, long ago. Genesis is a perpetual coming to be, coming to be, coming to be. Life is always, every instant, coming to be. It is a moving image of a changeless, perfect pattern that exists in the heart of the presence of God. And all of it, from the pattern to the moving image of the pattern, all of it is naturally good because God is love and good. So you have, in addition to all of this, universal aspects of the Godhead that are all of themselves integrated and interrelated, that are all unified together. In addition to this, of course, you have the many, many self-determined individualizations of that same Godhead. These being those who have gone through the process of incarnation and have reascended, the ascended masters, the cosmic beings, from this and other manvantaras who have come forth, who have had their moment of free will, as we would call it here, self-determination in this world, who have freely elected to awaken within themselves the will of their own mighty I Am presence, have claimed that will of their presence as their own will, have known it as their will, have many of them never descended into duality, abandoning that will. And they have reascended back into that will and are ever so joyous to now be an undivided expression of that one presence, engaged in the bliss of eternal creativity, the bliss of fashioning life, form, beauty, the bliss of bestowing love and richness, enriching every other part of life, the co-creative process that is ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, the bliss of ever more expanding the individuality of their own selfhood so as to be able to encompass more and more and more of the nature of the nameless, all-pervading one presence within themselves, encapsulating and incarnating that within themselves, and then stepping it down and re-radiating it out to lesser levels of God reality, sending it forth into creation. Now, if you can imagine this one organism, all of it interconnected, if you can imagine that it is not a static or even a monolithic item, but it is a living, breathing organism. You've seen the lights in the large city when not only you have the lights of the street lights and of the signs, but the lights of the headlights and tail lights of people coming and going, and you have this sense of a beehive of activity going on in a large city. Expand that to include the light and life flowing and coming and going throughout all of the length and breadth of this entire great and magnificent cosmos. And then you will have some idea of the function that the quality that we call light. You know, there is this Trinity, God as love, capital L-O-V-E, God as life, capital L-I-F-E, and God as light, L-I-G-H-T. And now we are speaking specifically of God in this role of light, of his pure, absolute existence as his absolute God consciousness and intelligence that is shuttling back and forth across the warp and woof of all of creation, knitting it all together, being the messenger of light that bears the command, like the Mercury or the Hermes of ancient times, that delivers the conscious cosmic Christ command of individualized mighty I Am presences, of having that light go forth into all of creation. Call to mind for yourselves, every single one of you, the many times that you have been lifted up by the ascended masters into the space of their inner electronic circle and their inner presence. That is the presence of this divine light. It is a level of reality that knows no opposition or duality. It knows no perversion. It is absolute perfection, exquisite and magnificent in every possible way. And it is a light that is even now concentrated, focused, and distilled by the ray of individuality that is your own individual mighty presence. Truly, that presence utilizes a body temple of its own, a body consciousness known as the electronic body, which is eternally youthful. That body is a condensation and concentration of this light, so powerful that it is able to bend light. It is able to concentrate light, form and fashion light, and send it forth into all of creation. This light radiates forth at the level of the ascended masters and broadcasts through the seven realms of the seven worlds, shines through the realm of the causal body, shines through the realm of the cosmic Christ, and is intended and in times past filled every nook and cranny of this earthly world during the first three golden ages. This light directly from the electronic body filled and packed space. And in those realms and before the fall of man, it filled the mind and feelings and etheric bodies of the unascended light root races that were striving to evolve here, when those bodies were accelerating orders of magnitude of greater intensity than they are today. Those very same prosaic physical forms that you wear, those rather flaccid, flabby emotional bodies, those intractable minds that you have at present, and that poor, blessed, worn out memory vehicle were not then as they are now. They were vehicles that were instantaneously responsive because they were able to hold magnitudes, greater intensities of this light that stemmed directly from the blessed electronic body. Whenever you think of this quantity of light, this caliber of light, you must, in every single instance, trace it directly to the heart, head, and hands of your own mighty I Am presence, or one who is in the victory of their ascension. One of the great profound teachings of ascended master law is that regardless of the attainment of any unascended life stream, their Christ presence does not, of its own level of reality, of its own personal authority, project the light. The Christ is not the source of the light, nor is the causal body the true level of source. Rather, it is the functioning, as you know, of the Christ to mediate that light, to pass along the calls, the directing intelligence to the electronic body. But it is the sole prerogative and lawful source of that light to issue forth from the level of the individualized mighty I Am presence. So when you call forth light or flame, whether you envision it as a ray of light or as a liquid light or as a flame of the light that is on its return passage homeward, as in the case of the violet flame blazing up from beneath your feet, in all of these instances, you are truly speaking of a rate of vibration, a level of God consciousness that originates in the very undivided oneness of the presence and is the cosmic Christ light. That light reigns supreme throughout all of life and creation. Of course, the question is, if this be true, how is it that we have come to see blight here in this world? We have come to see the ravages of the whole sad diorama of mortal consciousness. And the answer is quite simple. It is because of that which Daniel spoke of when he referred to the abomination of desolation that stands in the holy place where it ought not. That beast that was, that is, but yet is not. And here we are speaking, of course, of that misanthrope of mortal creation that has set itself up in eternal enmity against the oneness of the ever-living being that is God in all of creation. It is the antithetical opposite of that, and it is born out of self-will, out of self-ignorance, self-delusion, self-pity, all of those maladies of the mortal self. It is very clear. If you wish to rehearse the passages yourself, you may do so at your leisure. In the book of Genesis, the very first few chapters, there you will find this saga outpictured. For when God first makes creation, as at the end of every day, he pronounces a benediction upon that day's work. And he says, it is good, or at the end of the sixth day, very good. At the end of the sixth day, at least in the first telling of the creation, Both man and woman, Adam and Eve, have been created, and they likewise are pronounced to be very good. That Edenic consciousness then existed during that time, and it produced the abundance of nature in all of life. However, observed the drama that took place as mankind, either individually or collectively, chose to bring inside of themselves. This is a really wonderful symbolic metaphor. It is the metaphor of the apple, the Sodom apple, that was plucked off of the tree of duality, of the knowledge of relative good and evil, and was then consumed by mankind. It was ingested. It was brought into their very own nature. One of the ascended masters one time likened gossip to toasting a marshmallow over a very sooty flame that blackened the outside of the marshmallow and filled it with the smudge from off the soot of the flame. And it was a very graphic analogy to imagine those who were engaged in gossip taking that blackened substance and ingesting it into their system. The principle is quite simple, that if that duality is going to function within feeling, within mind, within the physical world, then its very presence and the fact that it has been freely opted is going to eject and evacuate the Christ light, the God consciousness. One or the other must go. In the case of the Garden of Eden, it happened to be the case that there God sent his cherubim with their two-edged swords and drove the fallen consciousness of Adam and Eve, who had ingested this duality of good and evil, ejected them from the Garden of Eden. And they were then subject to laws of mortality, the sense of struggle, the sense of toil, of earning one's bread by the sweat of their brow. In other words, mortality, not living by the productivity of the ascended masters or of the mighty I Am presence, but living by what you could scrape together, of how you could get by in life. This was necessary because in God's creation, in that one ever-living being, throughout the whole expanse of that, there is innocence, there is purity, there is the childlike nature, and there is the stainless shield of righteousness in every part of life in that whole realm. Thus it is as well in the ascended master realms. And this should serve as a clear object lesson to us that if we wish to live, move, and operate within that light of the consciousness of the mighty I Am presence, that we will be obliged to banish from our world all that is antithetical to that light. We will have to seal the door where that darkness dwells. Now, this does not mean, and you know this quite well, that you must today outwardly be perfect in every possible way. No, it means that the day's allotment of returning karma must go into the violet flame, and that the electronic circle must encircle you with the threefold action of the pure white light below the solar plexus and shut off all of the impulses from that which yet remains to be transmuted day by day. And that you therefore are detached from that you move in the light and the radiance as it is shown, portrayed in the portrait of the I Am Presence, with the stepping in of the Christ Presence, and even the light from the I Am Presence coming down to the level of the heart chakra, that you live and move and have your being in that realm. When you elect to live your life in this manner, you may live within the realm of this Christ light. And what will occur for you is that which has occurred one by one in the lives of those initiates who have walked the pathway of the ascension before you. And that is that they have discovered more and more of the infinite capacity of their own source, of the open doorway to eternity, that is the electronic body, to, when the law has been fulfilled, to pour forth that open doorway of that light and to send it out into every aspect of your life, to have it go forth into every person, place, condition, or thing that there is in life, and to fill your life. And in effect, what is happening is that this universal one, this all-pervading one, is actually being permitted to flow back into your life. You are being permitted to flow into its life. Your consciousness is no longer quarantined in the clay vessel of your four lower bodies, but your consciousness, having been whitened with the robe of white light Christ righteousness of your own Christ presence, then you and your consciousness are once more free to flow into this great macrocosmic stainless purity of God consciousness that is the all-pervading presence. And there is that macrocosmic, microcosmic exchange that occurs that lifts the microcosm into its alchemical union with the macrocosm. And through the doorway of your own consciousness then is able to flow that omnipotence of the Christ light that has been demonstrated down through the ages by so many of the ascended masters prior to their ascension, not the least of which being, of course, our own beloved Jesus Christ. Now, this recipe for overcoming, which applies to the individual, it is something that you may rely upon. You may ask yourself, why so slow? Why so long does it take to accomplish this? And the answer is quite simply, it is not taking long at all. If you were to compare how long it has been that your four lower bodies have been stepped down in vibration into mortality, how much has been accumulated in the memory body, and then you were to see, in contrast to that, how rapidly the violet flame and the other flames of the 7 rays and the 5 secret rays are beginning the process of pummeling those 4 lower bodies and preparing them for the greater initiations, your heart would leap in rejoicing to know how swiftly is the return ascent back into the heart of your beloved mighty I Am presence. And the only limiting factor is not that the law doesn't work for you as it works for the Mahatmas, as it worked for the Wonder Man of Europe, as it worked for Jesus Christ or the Old Testament prophets. The law is impersonal, it works for all. The only question is whether you have raised your body temple, your 4 lower bodies, into those pure essences of the universal macrocosm of the presence sufficiently so that through those elevated bodies there can re-radiate out into life here below those dynamic, miraculous working powers of your mighty I Am presence. That is sure to come, and it is already surely happening more and more. This past New Year's class dealt specifically with the whole issue of using the glorious light of the emerald ray to concentrate the pure white fire of the mighty I Am presence and to bring it forth into this outer world of form. This is a most necessary aspect of the cosmic law. Likewise, that which we are pointing out to you today about casting out all of those things that would siphon off, drain away elements of your crystal cord energy, of your application, and redirect that light into misqualification. Those things do have to themselves go and not any longer sap the vital energies of your consciousness. While this is true for individuals, how much more is it true for groups of individuals, for nations and peoples? And in truth, as the world now struggles to regain its equilibrium, to get back on track in various ways, there is such compassion in the hearts of the ascended masters, for they see the record so clearly that while on the one hand, mankind would like to reestablish the abundant life for themselves, they also see how there is the wholesale misapplication, the unclean use of that very same life and opportunity that is no quicker than it comes into their hands than it is plowed into the most horrendous, horrific, and eviscerating aspects of human consciousness, which are themselves abominations to the purity of the stainless consciousness of the One Presence. They are like leeches that are actually draining off the vital life essences that are so very necessary to build up economies and cultures that can lead to the golden age. And the challenge for the people of this time is how to balance on the razor's edge of Christ's discrimination a proper balance between the freedoms of individuals to choose for themselves that which they shall do against the welfare of the collective society to exterminate from within its own precincts, from within its own boundaries and borders, those very things that are like a cancer that are eating away at the vitals of those nations. All of this being done in the name of certain so-called freedoms. But the Ascended Masters would hasten to point out that what are called freedoms are in fact not freedoms, because all freedom derives from God. And that is freedom to choose within the infinite variety of purity and harmony and perfection that exists within the divine. There is limitless capacity to create within the divine without ever departing from beauty and harmony. Beyond that, what is called freedom is human license and rebellion. And it is a desecration that does not affect but one individual. The scientific community of the world has learned, for example, of the deleterious effects of secondhand smoke on those who do not smoke themselves. So much so that some states are instituting laws against smoking even in one's own home or apartment because of the effects of that smoke as it wafts around to other individuals who do not engage in that noxious behavior. Secondhand smoke is nothing in comparison to the astral and psychic miscreations that are constantly being churned out by millions of life streams having their consciousness and attention fed and drawn into such tragic limitations. And somehow or another, the Ascended Master students, using the action of the blue lightning and of the ruby ray, are going to have to be, for a time, like the little boy who put his finger in the dike, to hold that as much in abeyance, to work with the Ascended Masters to clear it off daily, weekly, and monthly through the violet flame vigils, through the forthcoming release of the Ruby Ray Redemption Ritual, which will be a highlight of this coming Easter class, but also not only to forever and a day be engaged merely in this form of garbage collection, but to actually engage in the positive, forthright, life-affirming, creative aspects of Acropolis Sophia, of the White Temple, of the kingdom building of the dawning golden age of Saint Germain, wherein the clean use of life is taught, wherein the clinical understandings, metaphysically speaking, of the tragedy of these many misqualifications can somehow or another become known to the many, and they can take the necessary steps themselves, to protect society from the things that are draining off the vital energy of life because of those misqualifications of the life force, which do not permit the all-perfect living being of the one presence to have that Christ light go where it is not invited, to have that Christ light go forth and to fill all of life with that consciousness. We have such an alliance with the hosts of the Ascended Masters when it comes to the fashioning of this divine light. I tell you, any Ascended Master student who gives their calls and who has never felt the touch of the fire of the light of their own mighty I Am presence issuing forth in answer to their calls, such a student is in a bad way. Because on the one hand, they do not have their faith mounting up, nor do they have the reinforcement that comes from the tangibility of that light, nor do they know of the immense and limitless power that it has, enabling them to stand in the face of all appearances to the contrary and to have confidence that that light is all-powerful, as indeed it is. So we do know that that light is going forth. We know, for example, that that light of the consciousness of the mighty I Am presence will not receive in harmony into itself. So the formula is very simple. When that light, remembering again that it issues from the limitless source of the electronic body, when it flows forth, there is no contest, there is no arm wrestling, there is no battle of titans against one another. There is only the light going forth that knows no opposite, that fills and occupies space, not as a lightning flash that lights up the darkness for a moment and is gone, but as a widening doorway into the eternal that is an ever-growing and ever-expanding sun that relentlessly pours out every instant more and more and more of that light, that pours it out and sustains it and creates a pathway that you yourself may walk upon and flow forth into the cosmos. There are many Ascended Masters who hold as their service to life the amplifying of this aspect of the Godhead that we call light, cosmic light, the light of the cosmic Christ consciousness. You can begin with such a one as your own beloved Amaryssus, the goddess of light. Oh, for the day when she takes you by the hand, you are liberated of your physical form, and you have the joy of being as a free light ray, an intelligent light ray, able to speed along at 186,000 miles per second or faster, and travel here and there at the speed of thought. Then you will know a part of what it means to be in this light. The litany of the lineage of all of those cosmic beings who have to do with this aspect of God as light goes on and on and on. Certainly, you would want to remember the beings in the heart of the great central sun, and the sense that the light from the great central sun is all-encompassing and all-embracing, and includes the furthest, outermost point in time, space, and this earthly plane. All of that is held within the close embrace of the consciousness of Alpha, of Omega, of the Nameless One, of the Holy Kumaras, of the Goddess of Liberty, and all of those who serve in the heart of the great central sun. As this cosmic light flows forth throughout all of creation, it is, in fact, that aspect of the thinking flame of God. Fohat is described as the steed upon which the rider of thought holds on to the mane of that steed and goes forth and issues the crisp cosmic conscious Christ commands to every single part of life. You, each one, will want to hold yourselves within the open door to that electronic body of your own beloved mighty I Am presence, and hold yourselves within the universal aspect of that light. One of the things which was initiated in a very preliminary manner this past July at our Acropolis Sophia was the understandings of the universals of the mighty presence and the individual aspects of the mighty presence. And in this regard, the students were guided to consider that there were focuses of the universal aspect of the Godhead in the heart of the great central sun, and that these focuses, things that Plato called forms, are also known, or we are going to define them specifically as the monads of the one presence. Monad meaning a universal heart, a universal aspect that is all-encompassing and all-pervading. Today, we meditate upon that principle in general and think of it in terms of the throbbing monad of the heart of God, the presence, as light, light, light going forth, light filling all of creation, light knowing its own, light conquering all that is unlike itself, light filling every part of creation and issuing forth with the divine authority of the electronic body and necessitating that every part of creation that comes within it is going to come into conformity with that light. What is being afforded to each and every one of you then is the invitation to return back into this undivided allness of the presence, to actually melt your consciousness with that one presence, to enter into that realm of supreme, pristine, dazzling, changeless, primeval, God-conscious light that is the kingdom of God, the one kingdom of the one presence. Even now, you may enter in and invite that light into your life and watch as one by one everything in your life shifts and becomes part of that creation. Never fear what is coming upon the earth. Never fear what may happen to yourself. As Jesus said, take no thought what you shall say, what you will eat, what you will drink, for your presence knows of that. Have the confidence that this light is there, and as you are loyal and steadfast in holding to that light as it is constantly being sent forth by your own beloved presence, the truth of the identity that you are, that your sojourn as a Godhead charioteer here in this earthly world will swiftly be drawing to its conclusion, and that you will be performing the service that will best bless as many of mankind as can possibly be blessed. The consciousness that we are seeking to share with you today is actually, in very truth, the awareness that is held from moment to moment by your own Christ presence. Your Christ presence is dripping, saturated, overflowing with that consciousness of the light of the source of the mighty I Am presence. The consciousness of your Christ presence doesn't think of itself in any way as an isolated self or entity, but rather as one glorious focus in a greater truth and reality of this magnificent wholeness and organic nature that is in life. As you enter into this consciousness, even now, one of the practical side effects of this is that the great sea of universal life will become the executor of your consciousness. It will outpicture and reflect that which you express, because it is that nature of that great sea to respond on the instant to the sattva, to the golden directing intelligence of that Christ light. You will find as well that you are now kith and kin to the salamanders, the undines, the gnomes, the sylphs. All of these beings, for the most part, have a pure, unsullied consciousness. They shy away from mortal consciousness. They shy away, whenever possible, from the desecrations of human misqualified thought and feeling. If they did not do so, we would not have the outpicturing of God in nature, the purity of the air and of the earth, of the water, the expression in the vegetation that we have, the beauty of the flowers. All of these come forth because, for the most part, nature remains steadfast because she is being pressed from within by the one presence. The all-pervading presence is pressing from within. And on the other side of that, you have this puny 4 or however many billions human beings there are trying to press upon that same nature. And you can be assured that the oneness of the presence far outpowers all of the sum total of all of mankind put together. That nature will throw that off, will restore her pristine purity, and go on her way unmolested. You can be a part of that already. You can already move into that, be allied with all of those forces of nature. Have them flash in response, in service to you, because they instinctively must do so. If we leave you with anything else in all of this, it should be this vision. All of life is truly, truly one. We don't see it out here because everything looks like it's separated and behaves autonomously, but it is really, truly one. It doesn't, for the most part, except for human beings, it doesn't have free will. It only has the instinctive responses that are from within its own divine nature. So without having that free will, it is necessarily expressing the will of the one presence, the intelligence of the one. And this means that as we enter into that oneness of our presence, we are passing past that cherubim with the flaming sword that had previously barred our entry home into the Garden of Eden. For we have wrapped ourselves in that purity of the light of our own mighty I Am presence. We have wrapped ourselves in the white garment of the Christ presence, and the angels part, and their swords form an archway, an invitation to re-enter that Edenic consciousness. As you hold to this awareness, you will be so very joyous to hold the consciousness of your own blessed, mighty electronic presence as the part of you that is performing all of these actions, as the part of you that has the authority over the gnomes, elementals, salamanders, and solar devas, over the cherubim and the seraphim. That presence as the doer for you. In the weeks and months ahead, as we draw closer to this forthcoming Easter class, we look forward to the descent of the flame of the resurrection, of the flame of the ruby ray, of the consciousness of the cosmic Christ in Lord Krishna and Sophia, Lord Maitreya, of the world teachers, beloved Jesus and Kuthumi, of the angels of Gabriel and Uriel who serve that ray of the cosmic Christ light, and the wielding of that ruby ray to actually reproduce the purity of our own personal force field, of our temple of the presence, and of our nations and our peoples, to reinstitute that invitation of purity that will allow this Christ light to once again come forth into our worlds. I am going to invite all of you to stand and to give with me the shadowless light 3 times as a peeling forth of this intensity far and wide across the earth, the action of the cosmic Christ light. Bear in mind, if you will, the definition of ascended master light is light that is not capable of being requalified by anything less than itself. Your goal then is to strive for the status of when the light of your electronic body, while it is stepped down to the level of your mind, while it is stepped down to the level of your feelings, and even when it is stepped down to the level of the earth element and the earth current, that it is not going to be requalified by anything less than the perfection of your own mighty presence. You may elect that, you may decree that into your world. And so long as you hold to that resolution as the will of your presence, you will enforce that intent of not being requalified on your four lower bodies, so that they will more and more enforce that Adenic light on your own life and on life here upon this world. As we give this call, may we remember that we may lawfully affirm it on behalf of all mankind. We may affirm it on behalf of all of nature. We may give it with the authority of the one presence. Last week, there was some touching upon the fact that there is, in the democracies of the world, the idea of majority rule. And there has been some sophistry along these lines that somehow or another, the collective wisdom was the supreme directing wisdom in life that absolutely, in all cases, knows best. Well, the truth of the matter is that the true majority rule is the majority that is one with the one. For one with the presence is the majority. And in that one with the presence is the authority to insist upon that law of life for every single part of life here below. Fashion yourself for just a moment, not in a way that is directed against not even the most egregious person that might be in your imagination, but fashion your consciousness against discord, against impurity, against misqualified energy as it exists on the world of thought and feeling. Imagine that you, as beloved Jesus, were taking a rope and you were going into the temple and casting out the money changers. For so the light of the mighty presence can decree through you this day throughout the whole expanse of this world and call for the casting out of everything that is a desecration to the ever-living being that is the presence, and replacing it and filling it all with the shadowless light of eternity.